The Arapaho girl's quiet question, "Do you want something from me too, cowboy?" The wind carried the faint scent of sagebrush and dry grass, and the distant mountains stood tall, their peaks touched with snow. Near a small river, on the edge of the Wind River Reservation, a young Arapaho girl named Leela moved quietly among the tall grass. She was slender and quick, her dark hair braided neatly down her back, and her eyes reflected a mix of curiosity and caution. Leela lived with her family in a modest wooden home, surrounded by the vast open land that had been home to her people for generations. Every day she helped her mother gather water, tend to the small garden, and care for the animals. On this particular morning, Leela had finished collecting water from the river. She balanced the two clay jugs carefully, feeling the weight in her small hands, and walked toward the house. As she moved through the grass, she noticed a figure in the distance, someone she had never seen before. A man was kneeling by his horse, adjusting the saddle. His clothes were worn but clean, and the wide-brimmed hat on his head cast a shadow over his face. Leela instinctively stopped, lowering the water jug slightly. Her heart beat faster, not out of fear but out of curiosity. Outsiders did not often come near the reservation, and when they did, they were usually loud and careless. The man straightened up and ran his hand over his horse's mane, looking around as if he were taking in his surroundings. There was a calmness to him, something different from the other men Leela had seen passing by. He moved with care, speaking softly to his horse, almost as if he were talking to a friend. Leela crouched slightly behind a small bush, peeking through the leaves. She watched him for several minutes, fascinated by the way he worked. Finally, she decided to speak, her voice quiet but clear. "Do you want something from me too, cowboy?" she asked. The man looked up, startled by the sudden voice. His eyes widened briefly before softening with a smile. He wasn't angry or impatient. Instead, he seemed genuinely surprised, perhaps because the question was unexpected. He slowly approached, keeping his hands visible and showing no signs of threat. "I'm not here to take anything," he said gently. "I just need a place to rest my horse for a while." Leela tilted her head, studying him carefully. There was something about his tone that felt honest. She had seen many strangers before, men who wanted food, money, or even just to cause trouble. But this man seemed different. Her family had taught her to be cautious, to watch, to ask questions before trusting anyone. Still, a part of her wanted to know more about him. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice still soft, almost a whisper. The man scratched the back of his neck, thinking for a moment. "I'm traveling through," he said. "I work with cattle sometimes, moving them from one place to another. I'm just passing by." Leela nodded slowly. She had heard of cowboys before, men who rode across the plains, taking care of large herds of cattle. Some were kind, others were not. She wasn't sure which kind this one was, but his calmness and careful movements gave her hope. "You can leave your horse by the river," she said after a pause, "but don't let it wander too far." The man smiled again, tipping his hat slightly. "Thank you, little lady. I appreciate it." Leela stepped back, keeping her distance. She watched as he tied his horse to a nearby tree and began checking its saddle and bridle. He worked quietly, with patience and skill, making sure everything was secure. Leela couldn't help but feel a small sense of admiration. He wasn't just any stranger. He seemed to care about the animal, moving with respect and attention. For a long while, neither spoke. Leela just observed, her eyes moving from the man to the horse and back again. She noticed the lines on his face, the roughness of his hands, and the way he moved with a steady, controlled rhythm. It was clear that he had spent a lot of time outdoors, living off the land in some way. Yet despite the hardships his life might have held, there was a softness in his eyes that made him approachable. Finally, the man glanced up at her. "You're watching me," he said with a gentle laugh. Leela shrugged, trying to act nonchalant. "I like to know who is near my home," she replied. He nodded, understanding immediately. "That's wise. It's good to be careful." Something about his words made Leela feel more at ease. She had been taught to trust her instincts, but also to recognize honesty when she saw it. This man seemed genuine. She wanted to learn more, but she didn't want to be foolish either. "You must be very careful," she said quietly. "There are people who would not treat the land or animals kindly. You have to respect them, or they will be unhappy with you." "I understand," he said. "I try to respect everything I meet, people, animals, even the land itself. It has given me much, and I owe it the same in return." Leela's curiosity deepened. She had never met someone who spoke this way, someone who seemed to care so much about the world around him. She wanted to ask more questions, but she also wanted to test him a little to see if his words were true. "Why do you travel so far from your home?" she asked, tilting her head. The man paused, looking out over the hills as if thinking of something far away. "Sometimes the road calls me," he said softly. "I like to see new places, meet new people, and learn about their lives. It can be lonely, but it also teaches me a lot about myself and the world." Leela nodded slowly. She understood a little of what he meant. Life on the reservation was predictable in many ways, but she also knew that there was a world beyond the hills and rivers she had always known. Maybe he was like a bridge between her world and the wider one, someone who could show her something she had never seen before. For the next hour, Leela watched as he finished caring for his horse. He spoke softly to the animal, brushing its mane and checking the reins. She noticed how gentle he was, never pulling too hard, never rushing. It was clear that he understood the importance of patience and care. Finally, he looked back at her, a small smile on his face. "Thank you for letting me stay here for a while," he said. "You can stay," Leela replied, "but don't go too far, my family will worry." "I won't," he promised. As the sun climbed higher, warming the plains, Leela felt a small sense of excitement. She had met a stranger who did not scare her, who seemed to understand respect and kindness. She wondered what stories he carried with him, what experiences had shaped the way he lived. The man, Jack, as she would later learn, sat quietly by the riverbank, letting his horse graze while he rested. Leela stayed nearby, still watching him from a safe distance. She was cautious, as always, but a small part of her was intrigued. She had asked her first question, testing him, and he had responded with honesty. That simple exchange, the quiet question and the gentle answer, felt important, as if it had set the tone for something that could grow between them. Hours passed and the wind shifted, carrying the faint sound of distant birdsong. Leela's curiosity began to outweigh her caution. She stepped closer, her small footsteps silent on the soft earth. Jack noticed her approach but did not seem surprised or alarmed. He simply looked at her with calm, steady eyes, as if he had been expecting her to come a little closer. "You seem different from the other people who come around here," Leela said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I hope that's a good thing," Jack replied with a gentle smile. "It is," she said after a pause. "You respect the land and your horse. That is rare." He nodded, understanding her words. "I try to do what is right, even when it is hard. The land teaches us a lot if we pay attention." For a moment, silence fell between them. It was not awkward, but comfortable, filled with the quiet sounds of nature, the rustling grass, the river's gentle flow, and the occasional call of a bird. Leela felt a strange sense of peace, as if meeting this man had brought a small change to the rhythm of her day. When the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the land, Leela finally spoke again. "Will you stay here tonight?" she asked. "I will," Jack said. "If it's all right with your family." Leela nodded. She felt a small smile tug at her lips. Perhaps, she thought, this traveler was not like the others. Perhaps he could become a friend, or at least someone who would teach her something about the world beyond her home. As the sky turned shades of orange and pink, the girl and the cowboy remained near the river, each quietly observing the other. The bond had not yet been formed, but a connection had begun, subtle and fragile, like the first hint of a new season. Leela's quiet question had opened the door, and Jack had stepped through it with honesty and respect. That evening, as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Leela returned to her home, her mind filled with thoughts of the stranger by the river. She wondered what stories he carried, what lessons he could teach, and whether she could trust him completely. She knew that tomorrow would bring more questions, more observations, and perhaps a deeper understanding. But for now, she felt a small spark of excitement, a quiet hope that sometimes, even strangers could bring something meaningful into one's life, if only they were willing to listen, respect, and care. And so, the first chapter of their story ended quietly, under the vast Wyoming sky, with a young Arapaho girl and a traveling cowboy, each unaware of how much their meeting would change their lives, yet both feeling the subtle pull of curiosity, respect, and the possibility of trust. The morning sun rose gently over the hills once again, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. Leela awoke early, as she always did, the sounds of the river and the wind through the trees greeting her. Her thoughts immediately returned to the cowboy she had met the day before, Jack. The memory of his calm voice, the way he cared for his horse, and the quiet respect he had shown for the land lingered in her mind. She felt a mixture of curiosity and caution, wondering what this man would do next and whether her family would even allow him to stay near their home. After helping her mother with the morning chores, Leela made her way toward the river, carrying a small basket of bread and dried berries. She moved quietly through the grass, careful not to startle the horse grazing nearby. Jack was there just as she expected, sitting by the riverbank, polishing his boots and checking the bridle of his horse. He looked up and smiled when he saw her approaching, nodding politely. "Good morning," he said softly. "Good morning," Leela replied. She set the basket down on a flat rock nearby. "I brought some food. You can share it with your horse too if it wants." Jack's eyes softened with gratitude. "Thank you, Leela. That is very kind of you." He carefully laid out a small portion of the bread for himself and set some oats for his horse. The two ate in companionable silence for a while, the sound of the flowing river and the gentle breeze filling the space between them. After finishing his meal, Jack stood and stretched, then turned to Leela. "Would you show me around?" he asked. His tone was gentle, respectful, and full of genuine interest. Leela hesitated for a moment. She had been taught to be cautious with outsiders, even ones who seemed honest. But there was something about him, a calmness and sincerity, that made her want to trust him. Slowly, she nodded. "I will, but you must follow the rules of our land. Do not touch what is not yours and always respect the animals and plants." Jack nodded solemnly. "I promise." And so the day began. Leela led him through the fields and the small woods near her home, showing him the best places to find fresh water and the herbs her mother used for medicine. She pointed out the nests of birds, explaining which ones were safe to observe and which were best left alone. Jack listened carefully, asking questions politely and never interrupting. He seemed genuinely interested in learning about her world, and Leela began to feel that he truly respected it. At one point, they came across a small herd of deer grazing near the edge of the woods. Leela motioned for Jack to stay still, her eyes wide with excitement and awe. "Do not make a sound," she whispered. "They will run away if they sense danger." Jack crouched low, keeping his movements slow and careful. The deer watched them with curiosity for a few moments before returning to their grazing. Leela felt a small thrill of pride. She had taught him something, and he had followed her instructions perfectly. As they continued their walk, Leela told him about her family, their daily routines, the stories her grandmother told, and the traditions they followed. Jack listened with attention, occasionally asking gentle questions to understand better. He shared a little about his own life, speaking of long days on the trail, the challenges of caring for cattle, and the quiet moments he found in the open land. Leela found herself fascinated by his stories. Though their worlds were very different, she felt a connection growing between them, built on respect and shared curiosity. By mid-afternoon, they reached a small clearing where wildflowers grew in abundance. Leela knelt to pick a few, carefully avoiding those that were poisonous. She handed them to Jack, who accepted them with a smile. "These are beautiful," he said. "Thank you," Leela shrugged, trying to hide her pleasure. "They are everywhere, you just have to know where to look," Jack nodded. "You have a gift for noticing the small things." "I admire that." For a while, they simply sat in the clearing, enjoying the quiet and the warmth of the sun. Leela watched Jack carefully, noting how he treated the land with care, never stepping on delicate plants and always mindful of the small animals around them. It was rare, she realized, to meet someone who respected life so fully. Later, they moved on to the river again, where Leela taught Jack how to catch small fish using simple tools she had learned from her family. Jack followed her instructions carefully, his hands steady and precise. He managed to catch a few fish, which Leela inspected and nodded approvingly. "Not bad for your first time," she said with a small smile. Jack laughed softly. "I could learn a lot from you." As the day wore on, they encountered small challenges: a fallen log blocking the path, a muddy area that needed careful crossing. But each time, Leela guided him patiently. Jack never grew frustrated, even when he stumbled or made mistakes. He listened, learned, and tried again, showing a quiet determination that impressed Leela. By evening, they returned to the area near Leela's home. Her mother had been watching from a distance, initially wary but gradually relieved to see Jack behaving respectfully. Leela approached her mother with a smile. "He is kind, mother, he means no harm." Her mother studied Jack for a long moment. "We will see," she said cautiously, "but he seems honest. That is rare." Jack bowed his head slightly in greeting, showing respect. "I am grateful for your trust," he said. That night, as the stars appeared in the sky, Leela and Jack sat near the fire. Leela's father had joined them, bringing extra blankets and food. The family spoke cautiously at first, but Jack's gentle manner and attentive listening began to earn their trust. He shared stories of his travels, the people he had met, and the lessons he had learned from life on the trail. Leela's parents listened carefully, noting the respect and humility in his words. Leela sat quietly, feeling a sense of pride and excitement. She had introduced this man to her world, and he had treated it with care and honor. The quiet question she had asked on their first meeting, "Do you want something from me too, Cowboy?" echoed in her mind. Now she realized that he wanted nothing but understanding and connection, nothing that would harm her or her family. As the fire burned low, Jack helped Leela gather some more firewood for the night. They moved silently through the soft glow of the embers, each step careful and deliberate. Leela felt a sense of comfort in his presence, a rare feeling of ease with someone from outside her world. She began to understand that trust could grow slowly, like a small plant, nurtured by patience, respect, and genuine care. Before resting for the night, Jack turned to Leela. "Thank you for today. I have learned more than I could have imagined." Leela nodded. "And I have learned that not all outsiders are the same. Some can be kind if you give them the chance." He smiled, the kind of smile that made her feel understood. "I hope we can continue to learn from each other." She felt a small warmth in her chest, a mixture of curiosity and hope. "We will," she said quietly. As they settled down near the fire, the night around them was filled with the gentle sounds of nature, the river flowing softly, the wind rustling through the grass, and the distant hoot of an owl. Leela closed her eyes briefly, feeling a sense of peace she had not felt with strangers before. Jack's presence was calm and steady, like the land itself, and for the first time she felt that meeting him had changed something in her world. Through the quiet night, Leela thought about the days to come. There would be more lessons to teach, more observations to make, and more moments of connection. She knew that the bond forming between her and Jack was not just about curiosity. It was about understanding, respect, and the willingness to see beyond differences. And so, the second day of their meeting ended quietly, with laughter shared over small lessons, knowledge passed back and forth, and a growing sense of trust. Leela felt a small thrill at the thought of what tomorrow might bring. She knew that the cowboy was no ordinary traveler. He was someone who could learn, listen, and respect her world, a rare gift indeed. The river flowed gently, the wind whispered through the trees, and the stars watched over them. A young Arapaho girl and a traveling cowboy were beginning a friendship that neither fully understood yet, but both would remember forever. And in that quiet, simple moment, something important had begun. A bond built not on words alone, but on respect, curiosity, and the willingness to see the good in someone who came from far away. The next morning, the wind carried a chill across the plains, reminding Leela and Jack that the seasons were slowly changing. The soft, golden light of dawn touched the hills, and the river sparkled under the rising sun. Leela awoke early, as usual, her mind restless with thoughts of the day ahead. She knew that Jack would be nearby, learning more about her world, and she felt a mix of excitement and concern. While she had grown to trust him, the reservation had its own rules, and there were always challenges when outsiders were near. By mid-morning, Jack was already tending to his horse, humming softly as he brushed its coat. Leela approached carefully, carrying a small bundle of herbs and wild berries she had collected for breakfast. Her eyes scanned the hills, alert for any signs of trouble, but all seemed calm. She set the basket down on a flat rock and called softly, "Good morning, Jack." "Good morning, Leela," he replied, smiling. "The horse seems to be in good spirits today." Leela nodded, kneeling to place the herbs beside the basket. "He is happy, I think, but you must always be careful with him. Even a small mistake can scare an animal." Jack listened closely, as he always did, absorbing every word. He appreciated her guidance and the knowledge she shared. It was not just about learning the land. It was about understanding life, patience, and respect. The day began with their usual walk through the fields and woods, but this time there was a tension in the air. From the distance, Leela could hear the faint sound of hooves approaching and the voices of men carrying the heavy tone of outsiders. Her heart skipped a beat. Travelers sometimes meant trouble, and these men did not sound like Jack. She whispered to him, "They are coming closer." "Be careful." Jack nodded, sensing the seriousness in her voice. Together they moved quietly to a small rise overlooking the path the men were taking. From this vantage point, they could see 3 riders, other cowboys passing through the area. Unlike Jack, these men were loud and careless, kicking up dust and shouting across the fields. Leela's father had warned her many times about such men. They did not respect the land, nor the people who lived on it. Jack watched with concern but remained calm. "We must stay out of sight and observe," he said softly. "We don't know their intentions yet." Leela agreed. They crouched behind a cluster of bushes, watching the men ride past. She noticed immediately the careless way they treated the land, trampling over small plants and shouting at a herd of deer, sending them running in panic. Her heart ached at the sight. "They are different," she whispered. "They do not care." Jack's expression was serious. "Not everyone respects the land, but that does not mean we cannot protect it in our own way." As the men rode out of sight, Leela felt a mix of relief and lingering worry. She realized that her world was fragile and that not all outsiders could be trusted. Yet Jack's calm presence reassured her. He had proven himself to be careful, respectful, and willing to listen. She trusted that he would act wisely if needed. Later in the day, an incident arose that tested their trust and teamwork. As they walked near the riverbank, they discovered that some of the fishing traps Leela's family had set the night before were missing or damaged. Leela's heart sank. She knew that someone must have tampered with them, likely the men who had ridden through earlier. "They took them," she said quietly, her eyes scanning the river. "Someone does not respect our ways." Jack nodded. "We can try to fix them and see if we can catch some fish again, but we must also be careful. There may be more who do not respect the land. Together they worked to repair the traps. Jack observed Leela's method carefully, following her instructions precisely. When a small fish was caught, Leela smiled faintly, feeling a small sense of victory. "See," she said. "Even when something goes wrong, patience and care can bring results." Jack smiled in return. "And teamwork makes it even better." As the day wore on, Leela and Jack encountered more subtle challenges. A fallen tree blocked their usual path, forcing them to find another way around. A muddy section of the riverbank threatened to pull them into the water if they were not careful. Each time, Leela guided Jack, and he listened intently, never showing frustration. In turn, he helped her navigate tricky areas, showing that he could be relied upon when danger or difficulty arose. During a quiet moment near a cluster of wildflowers, Leela noticed a small bird struggling to free itself from a tangle of twigs. She knelt quickly, gently helping it free its wing. Jack watched silently, impressed by her gentle care. "You have a way with life," he said softly. Leela shrugged. "It is not special. It is what I have learned from my family and the land. Everything has value." Jack nodded thoughtfully. "I wish more people understood that." By evening, the tension of the day began to fade, but the lessons remained. Leela and Jack returned toward her home, reflecting on the events. Her parents had noticed their absence and were waiting with concern. Leela explained briefly what had happened, emphasizing that no harm had come to them and that the stranger they had trusted, Jack, had behaved honorably. Her father studied Jack carefully. "You see, Leela," he said, "not all outsiders are the same. Some can respect what is sacred while others do not. You must always be careful, but you can learn from those who mean no harm." Jack bowed slightly. "I am grateful for your guidance and trust. I will do my best to honor it." As the sun set behind the hills, the family gathered near a small fire. Jack shared a simple meal with them, speaking gently and showing respect in every gesture. Leela felt a deep sense of pride and reassurance. He had proven that he could be trusted, but she knew that trust was fragile and must be maintained with care. That night, Leela lay in her small bed, thinking about the day. She realized that the bond forming between her and Jack was becoming stronger. It was not just about curiosity. It was about respect, understanding, and the quiet lessons of patience and care. She thought again about her first question, whispered softly by the river. "Do you want something from me too, cowboy?" She now understood that his answer had been honest. He wanted nothing but friendship and understanding, nothing that could harm her or her family. Sleep came slowly, for her mind was filled with thoughts of trust and responsibility. She knew that tomorrow could bring new challenges, as outsiders might return, or new problems might arise in the natural world she and her family depended upon. But she also knew that with Jack by her side, careful, patient, and respectful, they could face the day together. The next morning the sun rose again, warm and golden, and Leela moved quietly to the river. Jack was already there, tending to his horse and humming softly. They greeted each other, a simple nod and smile, and then began another day of exploration, learning, and growing trust. As they walked through the woods, Leela shared more about her people's traditions. The stories told around fires, the songs sung to honor nature, and the small lessons passed from elders to children. Jack listened intently, occasionally asking a gentle question to understand better. Leela realized that he truly wanted to learn, not just see, not just pass through. When they reached a hilltop overlooking the plains, Leela pointed to distant landmarks, telling him stories of her ancestors and the times they had faced hardships, yet persevered. Jack absorbed every word, his face thoughtful. "Your people are strong," he said quietly. "I see that now. And you are learning to be strong too," Leela replied softly. "Not through force, but through patience and respect." Jack nodded. "That is something I have always tried to do, but you remind me that there is always more to learn." The rest of the day passed in similar fashion. with small challenges testing their patience and cooperation. They crossed streams, climbed small ridges, and observed animals in their natural habitats. Each moment brought them closer, teaching them lessons not just about the land, but about trust, teamwork, and understanding one another. By evening, they returned home again, tired but satisfied. The bond between them had grown, solidified through shared experiences, quiet moments, and careful observation. Leela's parents acknowledged Jack's respect and care, slowly allowing him more access to the land and their lives, but always with watchful eyes. As the night settled, the stars appearing one by one, Leela reflected on the day's lessons. She had learned that even when faced with outsiders who did not care for her world, she could remain calm and patient, teaching what she knew to those who were willing to listen. She had learned that trust could grow through actions, not just words. And she had learned that Jack, the cowboy who had once startled her with a simple question, had become someone she could rely on, at least for now. The day ended quietly, with the sound of the river flowing, the wind whispering through the grass, and the knowledge that challenges would come. But together they could face them. Leela felt a small sense of hope and strength, knowing that trust and understanding could bridge the gap between different worlds, even in a place as wild and vast as Wyoming. The morning sun rose slowly over the plains, spreading its warm light across the river and hills. Leela awoke early, feeling a sense of anticipation. The days she had spent with Jack had been full of learning, small adventures, and quiet moments of understanding. Yet today felt different. She sensed that something important would happen, something that would deepen the connection between them. She moved quietly through the house, careful not to wake her family too early. Her father was already outside tending to the small herd of goats, and her mother was preparing breakfast. Leela grabbed a small bundle of bread and herbs, then slipped out toward the river where she knew Jack would be waiting. Jack was there, standing near his horse, checking the bridle and saddle. He looked up as she approached and offered a warm smile. "Good morning, Leela," he said. "Are you ready for another day?" "I think I am," she replied softly, feeling a flutter of excitement. "But I think today may be special." Jack raised his eyebrows, curious. "Special?" "Yes," Leela said quietly. "I think today we will understand each other more. Not just the land or the animals, but each other." Jack nodded thoughtfully. "I hope so. I want to learn as much as I can from you, Leela." They began walking together, moving through the familiar paths of the hills and fields. The river glimmered beside them, and the wind carried the fresh smell of earth and grass. Birds sang softly in the trees, and the deer in the distance watched cautiously as they passed. Leela noticed that Jack moved more confidently now. He had learned the ways of the land, and his respect for it was evident in every step he took. As they walked, Leela decided to ask a question she had been thinking about for several days. She paused on a small rise overlooking the river and looked at Jack. "Do you remember the question I asked when we first met?" she asked. Jack smiled softly. "I do. You asked if I wanted something from you." "Yes," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "I asked because I wanted to know if you would take more than friendship, if you would take advantage. But now I think I know your answer. You only want to understand, not take anything." Jack looked at her with calm eyes. "You are right, Leela. I only want to learn, to listen, and to respect. Nothing else. I do not come to your world to change it or to take from it. I come to understand it and to honor it." Leela felt a warm sense of relief. His words were honest, and she could feel it in the way he spoke and moved. For the first time, she felt that their bond was not just built on curiosity, but on true understanding. They continued walking, and Leela decided to share something more personal. "I have always wondered what it is like to travel far from home," she said softly. "To see other lands, other people, and different ways of living. You have done that, haven't you?" Jack nodded. "I have traveled many miles. I have seen forests, deserts, mountains, and rivers. I have met people from many places, and each one has taught me something. But I have never met anyone like you, Leela. You have shown me that respect and understanding are more important than distance or adventure." Leela smiled faintly. She had never thought of herself as someone who could teach another person, especially someone older and experienced. But Jack's words made her feel proud. She realized that knowledge and wisdom could come from anyone, regardless of age or background. As they reached a small clearing filled with wildflowers, Leela knelt to pick a few. She handed them to Jack, who accepted them carefully, his hands gentle. "These are beautiful," he said softly. Leela nodded. "Yes, but they are not just beautiful. They remind us to notice small things, to respect the little details of life. If we do not, we may miss what is truly important." Jack looked at her, impressed by her insight. "You have a way of seeing the world that I have never seen before," he said. "It makes me want to be better, to notice more, and to respect everything around me." For the rest of the morning, they moved through the fields, talking and observing. Leela taught Jack how to identify edible herbs and berries, how to read the tracks of animals, and how to move quietly through the woods without disturbing nature. Jack listened and learned, sometimes asking questions, sometimes remaining silent to absorb the lessons. Leela noticed how careful he was, how he tried to understand rather than judge, and it made her trust him even more. By midday, they stopped near the river to rest. Leela sat on a flat rock, dangling her feet over the water, while Jack carefully tended to his horse. They spoke quietly about their lives, their hopes, and their dreams. Leela shared stories her grandmother had told her about the Arapaho people, their history, and the lessons of respect, courage, and patience. Jack listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed he wanted to understand, not just hear. "You have taught me a lot today," Jack said softly. "But you have also reminded me of something important, that respect and understanding are not just words, they are actions. They must be shown every day in everything we do." Leela nodded. "Yes, words are easy, actions are what matter." They spent the afternoon working together to repair a small fence near the edge of the clearing, which had been damaged by a storm the night before. Jack followed Leela's instructions carefully, and together they lifted and secured the wooden posts. The task was simple but required patience and cooperation, and it gave them both a sense of accomplishment. As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the fields, Leela and Jack sat on the grass, tired but satisfied. The bond between them had grown stronger through the day's lessons, small challenges, and quiet moments of understanding. Leela realized that she had learned as much from Jack as he had from her. His respect, patience, and willingness to listen had shown her a new way to see the world beyond her home. Finally, as evening approached, Leela spoke again, her voice soft and thoughtful. "Jack, do you think you will continue to travel after this?" Jack looked out over the river, his expression serious. "I do not know," he said. "The road has always called me, but now I see that some places, some people, can teach me more than traveling ever could. I do not know what the future holds, but I do know that this place, and you, have shown me something important." Leela felt a quiet warmth in her chest. She realized that trust and understanding were growing between them slowly but surely, like a plant nurtured with care. She also understood that this bond was rare and precious, built on honesty, respect, and shared experiences. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Leela and Jack returned to the area near her home. Her family had been observing from a distance, watching the two of them with cautious interest. Leela's mother smiled faintly when she saw them approaching. "It seems you have learned well from each other," she said softly. Jack bowed his head respectfully. "I am grateful for the lessons and for your trust," he said. Leela's father nodded. "You have shown that you respect what is important to us. That is all we can ask." That night, as the fire burned and the family shared a simple meal, Leela reflected on the day. She realized that Jack's presence had changed something in her world. He had shown that outsiders could be trustworthy, that understanding and respect were more important than appearances, and that true friendship could grow from patience and care. Later, as she lay in bed, Leela thought about the quiet question she had asked on their first meeting. "Do you want something from me too, cowboy?" She now knew the answer without needing to hear it again. Jack had shown through his actions, his words, and his care that he wanted nothing but understanding and respect. That realization gave her a deep sense of peace. The next morning, the sun rose again over the plains, and Leela moved quietly toward the river. Jack was already there, tending to his horse, humming softly as he worked. They greeted each other with a quiet nod, a simple acknowledgement of the bond that had grown between them. For the rest of the day, they continued their learning and exploring. Leela shared more stories, more lessons, and more traditions, while Jack absorbed everything with patience and respect. They worked together, observed nature, and spoke of life, dreams, and understanding. Each moment reinforced the trust between them and deepened the connection that had begun weeks before. As evening approached, they sat together on a small hill, looking out over the plains. The wind whispered softly through the grass, and the stars began to appear one by one. Leela felt a quiet sense of joy, knowing that she had found someone who truly respected her world, and Jack felt a similar understanding. He had found a place where he could learn, grow, and be valued for who he was. In that quiet moment, under the vast Wyoming sky, both realized that their journey together was far from over. The bond they had formed was strong, built on trust, respect, and the willingness to understand one another. And though the future was uncertain, they knew that whatever challenges came, they could face them together, guided by the lessons of patience, care, and mutual respect. The morning sun rose gently over the hills, painting the plains with a soft golden light. Leela awoke early, as she always did, feeling a quiet mix of anticipation and sadness. Today was different from all the other days she had spent with Jack. She knew that soon he would have to continue his travels, moving on to the open plains and distant towns. Though their bond had grown stronger with each passing day, the time had come for a farewell. She moved quietly through her home, helping her mother gather water and preparing a small breakfast to share with Jack. Her father had already been outside, checking on the goats and ensuring everything was in order. Leela felt a flutter of emotion in her chest, a mixture of pride, sadness, and hope. Pride that she had taught Jack about her world, sadness that their time together was ending, and hope that he would carry the lessons and trust they had built into his journey ahead. Jack was already near the river when she arrived, tending to his horse as usual. He looked up as she approached, a gentle smile on his face. "Good morning, Leela," he said softly. "Good morning, Jack," she replied, her voice quiet but steady. She carried a small bundle of herbs and wildflowers, something she had prepared for him as a gift. "I thought you might like this." Jack's eyes softened as he took the bundle from her hands. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "This means a great deal to me." He looked at her thoughtfully. "You have taught me more than I could ever have imagined." Leela nodded. "And you have taught me too. You have shown me that not all outsiders are the same. That trust and respect can be built if people are willing to care." They spent the morning walking along the familiar paths near the river, speaking softly about the past weeks. Leela shared stories she had learned from her grandmother, tales of her ancestors, and lessons about courage, patience, and understanding. Jack listened carefully, occasionally asking questions to deepen his understanding. Each moment strengthened the bond they had formed, creating a connection that felt rare and precious. By midday, they reached the small clearing where they had often stopped to rest and share quiet moments. Leela knelt to gather wildflowers and herbs, carefully arranging them in a small bundle for Jack. He watched her, feeling the weight of their impending farewell. Though he had traveled far and seen many places, he had never met anyone like Leela. Her knowledge, patience, and quiet strength had left a lasting impression on him. "I will carry this with me," he said softly, taking the bundle from her. "Not just the flowers, but the lessons and the trust you have shared. I will remember this place and you always." Leela felt a warmth in her chest, a mixture of pride and sadness. She had hoped that Jack would understand the importance of her world, and now she knew he did. "And I will remember you," she replied. "You have shown me that the world beyond these hills can be understood, respected, and even appreciated. That not everyone wants to take from our lives, but some come to learn and honor them." As the afternoon sun began to lower, Jack prepared his horse for the journey ahead. Leela's father and mother watched from a distance, their expressions calm but full of meaning. They had observed Jack's patience, respect, and care over the past days, and they knew that he had proven himself worthy of trust. Leela approached her horse and gently stroked its mane. Jack did the same with his own, his hands steady and careful. They shared a quiet moment of understanding, knowing that words alone could not capture the depth of their bond. Before he mounted his horse, Jack turned to Leela. "Thank you, Leela," he said softly. "Not just for the lessons, but for your trust, your friendship, and the moments we have shared. I will carry them with me wherever I go." Leela smiled faintly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "And thank you, Jack," she replied, "for listening, for learning, and for respecting what is important to me and my family. That is a rare gift." They walked together to the edge of the clearing, where the open plain stretched far and wide. The wind blew softly, carrying the scent of grass, river, and earth. Jack adjusted his saddle and reins, preparing for the ride ahead. Leela stood beside him, feeling the weight of the moment, knowing that this was a farewell unlike any she had experienced before. "Will you come back?" she asked quietly, her voice almost a whisper. Jack looked at her with gentle eyes. "I cannot promise exactly when, but I will carry the lessons and memories of this place with me, and if fate allows, I will return." Leela nodded, understanding that some journeys were unpredictable and some promises could not be made with certainty. Still, the words brought her comfort, a quiet assurance that their bond was not broken, only stretched across distance. With a deep breath, Jack mounted his horse. Leela stood beside him for a moment longer, watching the gentle sway of his horse and the calm determination in his eyes. She raised her hand in a quiet gesture of farewell, and Jack nodded in return. As he began to ride away, moving slowly at first, Leela followed for a few steps, then turned back toward her home. Her heart ached with the knowledge that he was leaving, but she also felt a sense of pride and hope. She had shown him her world, taught him respect, and earned his trust. She knew that the lessons and bond they had shared would endure, even across miles and time. The plains stretched endlessly before Jack, the sun casting long shadows and turning the grass golden. He rode with a sense of purpose, carrying not just the memory of Leela and her family, but the deeper understanding of patience, respect, and the importance of trust. Each mile he traveled, he reflected on the lessons learned, the quiet moments shared, and the rare bond that had formed between a cowboy and an Arapaho girl. Meanwhile, Leela returned to her family, helping with the evening chores and preparing a simple meal. She spoke quietly with her parents, sharing her thoughts about Jack and the days they had spent together. Her parents listened carefully, nodding with approval. They had seen the respect, patience, and care in Jack's actions, and they knew that he had proven himself worthy of their trust. As night fell over the reservation, Leela stepped outside to the riverbank, gazing at the stars reflected in the water. She thought of Jack, riding across the plains, carrying with him the lessons, trust, and friendship they had built. She felt a quiet strength within herself, knowing that trust and understanding could connect even the most different worlds. She picked a small wildflower from the ground, holding it gently in her hand. It reminded her of Jack, of the care he had shown, and the lessons he had learned from her and her family. Though he was far away, she felt that the bond they shared remained strong, like the roots of the trees by the river or the flow of the water that never ceased. The days passed slowly, and Leela continued her work and her routines, but the memories of Jack and their shared moments lingered. She thought often of his gentle voice, his respect for the land, and the lessons he had embraced. She knew that their connection had changed her in small ways, teaching her about patience, understanding, and the quiet power of trust. One evening, as she sat near the fire with her family, Leela shared stories of Jack's journey, the lessons they had learned together, and the importance of respect and understanding in all relationships. Her parents listened, proud of her growth and the wisdom she had gained. Though Jack was gone, Leela felt a deep sense of hope. She knew that the bond they had formed would endure, carried in their memories and actions. The lessons of trust, patience, and respect would continue to shape her life and the way she interacted with the world beyond her home. In the days that followed, Leela often visited the river, imagining Jack riding across the plains. She smiled softly, thinking of their quiet conversations, the moments of learning, and the bond that had grown between them. She understood now that some connections, though brief, could leave a lasting impact, shaping hearts and minds in ways that distance and time could not diminish. And so, life continued on the reservation, filled with daily chores, lessons, and the quiet rhythms of nature. Yet the story of the Arapaho girl and the traveling cowboy remained alive in Leela's heart, a reminder that trust, respect, and understanding could bridge worlds, connect people, and leave a mark that endured far beyond a single meeting. Though the plains stretched endlessly and the horizon seemed distant, Leela knew that Jack carried a piece of her world with him, just as she carried a piece of his journey in hers. Their friendship, built on patience, care, and honesty, had created something rare and beautiful, a bond that would last quietly across time and space, guiding them both as they moved forward into their separate lives, yet forever connected by the lessons and memories they had shared. And as the night fell, the stars shining above the river and the hills, Leela whispered softly to herself, a quiet smile on her lips. Some bonds are stronger than distance, stronger than words. Some trust, once given and earned, lasts forever.